Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. We're going to be continuing our game dev project today. We're going to be memory leak hunting. Hit this one more time to be sure. So, last time we found out that an element of Godot, the node structure, is leading to, or at least the way we're using it, is leading to some objects being orphaned over time. And this is based on the way we're using it, the way the game needs to work, is causing it to shed objects very fast. So what we need to do is come up with, one, identify the stuff. So things like this, extends node. These are things that are part of a tree structure, and the tree structure needs to be unloaded or freed before it will properly go away. Otherwise, it lingers. We need to identify these things, determine if we need them to be those things, and go from there. Like, I don't know that the catalog objects need to be nodes. Yeah, this is one of our globals. So, does it need to be a node? Does it, do we need to structure it the way it is? We'll see. We'll see. Forgot to check in with the kitties. Let's see here. We do have... Oh, Sky has taken Ember's spot, so she has switched over to the side there. Mason is still on the bed, and Sherbet is looking out the window. Sammy is not visible because she is on my lap. Trying to keep her from being naughty, trying to keep her from chewing on cables. She just noticed one recently and kept trying to bite at it. That's a problem. Let's see. Okay. Let's get back in there. All right, so we want to look through our stuff, figure out what's a node, what needs to be a node, that kind of thing. I can demonstrate this. Let me show you what we're talking about here. So we do have our critters zipping in here. We do need to work on the vibration. When there's just one, I don't want them, like, juddering in the middle like that. We effectively need a close enough. We need a close enough. That way they stop moving if they're touching the target, But that's a later problem. What we're actually interested in here... Debugger. Hey there, Drew. We're just getting started. Objects, orphan nodes. So these orphan nodes are the problem. Let's go into our spawner here. I think I cut off the thing that was... we definitely know is causing the issue. Maybe not. I thought I removed one. Okay. Target was an issue. But we still have these. Where did I put that? Here we go. So if we change this to 55, we can see the orphan node's going to go up by another 4. Every time we create these, it creates some orphan nodes. Sammy will forgive me after like an hour or so tops if I trim her paws, but she definitely notices if I reach for the clippers. Like, she notices right away, and she has a tolerance limit for being held still. You can tell it stresses her out more and more, so I got to limit how often I do that. I reach for the box with the clippers, and she's like, no, I'm done. It's okay, Sammy. It's okay. Like, no, I disagree. Okay. So one thing we know, let's go look at our, I think it's like, what was it? About 4 per that we're getting. So we just added 5. We should increase by 20 here. Yep. So each entity has 4 nodes that are being orphaned. There is a way to dump that, but I think we can locate them without doing that. So if we look at our blob spawner, we have, so we've got 4 things being orphaned right now. We have 3 objects within our movement and 3 objects within the positioning. Now the positioning goes away right away. We're still creating it, but here's the element that I think is the cause of our movement problem. And that's that in changing how we wanted to do it, we made a new node that we wanted to access in the movement object. Look at movement right here. We have movement templates, but we're having trouble making use of this because this node doesn't exist until the parent node is readied, and that's a problem for us. Because we want to be able to use it. We want to be able to use this node right here so that we can add things to it. But we can't do that because it doesn't exist yet. So in our spawner, we made the definitely questionable decision to forcibly set it. We make a new node. So it is resulting in this node and all of the others being considered orphans because they're not really parented or attached to movement properly. At least I think. So, problem. We need to figure out a different way to do that. We have generated more errors. What are they? All right, these are a bunch of generic warnings. Terribly worried about the warnings just yet. It's not a great idea to have too many of them being generated. It muddies the waters. But we're trying to make things work less than trying to make things shiny. Okay. So if we can get it to where the movement object is clean, like it exists and it's getting child objects, then we'd be in better shape. So we create a movement node. Right here, it's not ready yet. So we could call ready, but that's not going to help us. Like, we could say, is the node ready? And I'm pretty sure it's going to say no. I'm skimming through this list because sometimes it's easier than trying to look at the doc. Things like connect and disconnect are for signals for triggered events. So that's the same kind of thing that we use for collision. Let's look at our documentation for this. Part of the reason that this is even coming up is that we're trying to use composition for the objects. We're trying to make it so that they are, well, at least Godot tree composition. We are trying to plug things in there. Hey there, Annabelle. Welcome, welcome. By making them nodes, it should make it so that they free cleanly, and it also gives them that, like, they're associated with the entities, and we can set them up in design time. We are trying to clean up some memory leaks in our code, Annabelle. We're working on our game project here. We've generally got spawning and the start of our collision detection working here. But aside from the jittery movement in there, we have a memory leak that we need to resolve. Generally know what it is, but the solution to it isn't necessarily clear or clean just yet. So here's our problem, is we're in the middle of a call and this isn't happening. We could do things like try to splinter this off and say add that and then have the object construct itself. That's a possibility, but it does remove some of the control over the that the generating object has. Hey there, Zell. Welcome, welcome. So we may need some different structure here. This is our problem, is when it's part of the tree, doing this on like a parent will free that parent and all of its children. But because they're orphaned nodes, this is never happening. So they only get cleaned out when the whole game shuts down. And that's a problem. Especially if it's happening when we're generating hundreds of monsters. It won't become a problem right away, but it would become a problem over time. And we don't need performance limiters. Okay, so the node itself isn't going to help us. So we might need to have something that kind of jobs it off. Like, these are our objects here. Movement and spawner. So part of our problem with these resources, let's get to this, is for me to load them in, we end up with we have to use packed scenes. Like, it has to be a node-derived thing. Where is it? Mob template. So we have packed scene, we have int, we have a color. What we want to be able to use is an arbitrary type. Like, if I could incorporate... By incorporating this, I'm putting in a scene. I'm putting in a node. If this node doesn't get attached to something, we get our problem. Our current infrastructure makes the mob body do that. But if I go into my spawner... blob. We can look... let's look at a spawner template. So the position modifiers in movement are adding nodes, but these are things that we're generating on the fly. We're not just using them. They don't just get attached as is. Could they be? Yes. But we want these to be a little more dynamic than that. Could we get around this? By using templates, we get around some of this, but we could use child objects, such that instead of relying on this template, where this is a spawner I'm sorry, this one is a resource generated from a spawner template. So we have a resource, and we can subsequently create spawner templates that use that resource or that model. So all of these are set. I go in and I grab one of these mob templates, like the blob here, which is another resource type, and pop that in there. And then that resource can be subsequently used on down the chain. And that's okay, because those don't contain this structure. This is where we get our problem. Gotta deal with something. Be right back. Sorry to do that so soon. All right, settling back in, folks. Sorry about that. Issue to deal with in the background. All right, we're back. Okay. So back into the memory leak hunting here. And sorry for not being present when you showed up, Sal's. So these are okay. These are integer arrays. That's fine. But these are packed scenes. That's where part of our problem comes in here. Do an export. Our test is an array of let's say movement template, like that. So export only supported in node derived classes, but the current class inherits resource. So well, movement templates are nodes, but do they have to be? What if we go into movement template and we axe that? Built in a resource, a node, or an enum. Yep, okay. Too bad, too bad. So it has to be a node, and thus we have a problem. So I think two solution paths that we could have is we could change movement template in similar to be either built-in non-node structures to the entity where it pre-populates itself. That loses us the flexibility of the template, though. So if we look at our spawner, the spawner can just be given this, but are we really getting benefit out of this? Because what we want to be able to do, the end goal, is that these are hot swappable. We tested that earlier, is I can rebuild this movement pattern and have them have every new one spawned with a different movement pattern. Like their movement and positioning can change moment to moment. I could even take an object in flight and change its movement patterns. Now, its position patterns don't matter, or at least those only influence when they spawn. But once they're spawned, movement patterns can change. So we can we can add things like that. But right now we're relying on using packed scenes, and that's biting us. We can't unready those because the whole thing relies on actually spawning. So if I go into spawner, I can't job this off. I can't take it and say, I'll generate the mob body and then it'll do it itself. It'll come into existence itself. That won't work because I need to do this. I need to get all of them to share a target, because then I can go into positioning and update that. Hey there, Tricky. Welcome, welcome. You are joining us in our coding stream. We are trying to design our way out of a memory leak problem. Oh, okay, okay. This is only if it's monsters. We kind of jitter it out of the way. It's not relevant. Then we apply our position modifiers. So I would really prefer to be able to do this, but I don't know if that's actually... No, this does win us stuff because we can generate a spawner with this information supplied. We can't actually do that because it needs all of this stuff set. No, we can still do that. All we need is the mob to spawn. Everything else we can do dynamically. Why is that camera misbehaving? Let's give it a poke. We'll use that camera. That camera usually doesn't misbehave like that. Someday I'll figure out a new pattern for the cameras that's less reliant on the model that I've got, but I ultimately think if once I get the new cameras set up in the future, we'll avoid that because I expect some of it is Wi-Fi problems, some of it is probably that Sky has managed to chew through the cables. Frayed cables tend to interrupt power signals, but most of the time they're not rebooting, which is what a power failure would normally do. Okay, how can we do? For those joining, we're trying to work through this problem. It's we have these packed scenes and we generate them, but we have nothing to stick them to. What we want to stick them to is in a movement object. We have this movement templates node, but the problem is movement templates doesn't exist. Well, thank you, Nightmare. I appreciate that. Oh, let's see. Kind of puzzle solving, you know? What's your idea, Sal? Thinking out loud to myself while you're probably typing. One possibility would be not to have this in pre-existence and not to assume it. When a movement object is readied, which would happen... Am I to presume this was the fan from earlier? Because if a node object, when it's readied, or a movement object, go into spawner, okay, our group. So we assign it, and then we add the child. Once we've got the child added, like at this point, should be when the ready is called. So like right here. Okay, so we do add child. We're going to step over that. It calls ready as soon as it's added. But at this point, our entity here for game. So we have a body, we have raycasts. This should be our movement templates node. Yes, Tricky, that is one of my 5 cats. If I recall, fan, you may have gotten yourself banned or suspended. I don't recall the exact circumstances, but there was a point at which you were told to stop. And you didn't. Do not recall. I only recall that it happened. Let's see. Node groups would let us reference them by type. So we could say, gimme these, kind of thing. There we go. If we... See, at this point, we should be okay. We should have that. So let's stop here. Say this is equal to $, movement templates. Just so. That should work. And then we could do this. Sammy, quit that. Just be aware of that in the future, fan. The general idea is to keep things calm and polite to each other. If you are asked to stop, please do so. Respect each other and respect me and the mods. My cat, well, the cat on my lap is chewing on my finger right now. We did not, did we get in there? Yeah, we did. It does not have that node. It does not have that node. But it should. But it don't. So here's our problem. Here's our problem. This does not get created at this point, and that's wrong. That it's supposed to be that when a node is readied, all of its children should be readied as well. So why is that not the case? Because it is added to the scene. Oof. So we could bypass this entirely and just have it where we add nodes as group members. So we could go in and say movement template nodes. I wonder if that's inheritable. Doesn't look like it. Which means we might have to add it in the scene itself. Which I don't want to do. Yeah, we would have to add it in the code. And that feels like we're dodging the issue. Ember getting comfy. So we solved the issue with targets. Targets don't need to be nodes because they're only referenced as code objects. That's okay. And movement. One possibility would be to was your base account still able to see the live streams happening? Right. Oh. Moment. What do you feel bad about, One Piece? I have just looking at something here. Okay. So I am slightly more merciful than my mods would be, Toaster. This is the only chance that somebody's going to have at this. in the future, if I found out that you were somebody that was dodging a ban by doing this, then you would be banned right away. So, hey there, mafioso. So keep this in mind if, and not mafioso in particular, but again, channel rule, don't be rude. If you are asked to stop by a streamer or a mod, do so. Your fan account has been given one more chance. Oh. Never mind. Never mind. Okay. One possibility that is upon ready of movement. Well, thank you, One Piece. That cat is Ember. Let's see, she's just flipping over to toast the other side. Yep, just toasting the other side. We were able to. Tricky Ember is, to my understanding, is called a diluted. It's kind of a. It's akin to a calico. Dude. There we go. So instead of the the dark orange, black, and white, she has gray and dark gray stripes, pale orange, and white. So the akin to the sort of splotchy color, and I don't know if it's predominantly a female trait like with calico. Almost all calicos are female. Pretty much, Drew. Like I said, I am more merciful with the ban hammer than my mods are. So I am more prone to giving a second chance, but the don't be rude extends to if you are told to do something and you choose to ignore it, then live with the consequences. Especially if you're given a timeout and you come back and are upset that you were given a timeout instead of a ban. Ah, but anyway, let's see. I've had a couple of cats now that have the stocky build, I will say. They're not intrinsically chubby. It's more that they're musclier than other cats. So Mason, who is not visible. Okay, we only have three visible right now. Mason is the type is yeah, built different. A lot of cats have just kind of like it's kind of a belly flap. They just have like loose skin. And that's one of the reasons they really don't like their belly touched. Is that's a very vulnerable spot. And that's why when a cat exposes its belly, there are a lot of cats that if you touch their belly, they will claw, bite, and kick because you have betrayed their trust. Them exposing their belly is them saying, I'm comfortable around you, so I will do this thing that makes me vulnerable. And then if you touch their belly, that is essentially them reacting with betrayal. But there are cats that don't have that soft, like skin flap. They have the muscle band like a human does. And often that kind of cat likes belly rubs. Mason's like that, and one of my previous cats, Rorschach, was like that. Muscle belly. Rorschach was a bit of a tank anyway. He was a very muscly cat. Mason is a lot slimmer, but he still has the kind of belly muscle band. Ember is usually where Sky is sitting right now, but while Ember will tolerate Sky walking over and using her as a pillow, Ember will not do that herself. Ember really doesn't like snuggling up with most of the other cats. Yeah, with cat there are some cats where you have to be careful about portion control. Uh, Sometimes that's not possible if you have multiple cats. It can be a hassle or inconveniently expensive solution wise. But if there are fewer cats, then what you can do is adjust the way that the food is put out. Because you do have cats that are they're kind of gorgers. They will eat whatever is out there, all of it at once. Okay. Once again, what we are trying to do, we want to take this logic. We have packed scenes right now. And when we are spawning them, what we are doing is we're instantiating them, which creates a node object. We want to attach that node to a movement template node. And hypothetically, we're doing that right now. We're saying this is a new node. Let's see. Maybe we can fix this. Say node is equal to node.new movement like node.name equal to movement templates. To delete that node. Add child movement template node. Then we're going to go into our movement node. We're going to remove that and that because that doesn't work anyway. All right, Tricky. Thanks for swinging through. Ready won't work here. I felt like it was going to be a good solution. All right, all right. We can still do this. Function. Add. Plate as a movement template. Yes. Templates as a node. Filed. New. Plate. Flat. Plate. Node. Say node is equal to node.new. Node.new. A template node is equal to name is equal to underscore oh. So string is equal to right. I hit insert. There we go. Okay. Okay. Wish there was a declaration for a constant. Well, maybe someday we'll find out. Thought this was a naming convention for a constant, so. Okay. Movement templates node. Okay, we predefined it. Now, we're going to add movement template. Will be we get a movement template, and we just say templates child movement template. Okay, okay. Rid of you. Not add. That out. And forcibly reload it. Sometimes it's flaky about picking up class updates to classes. Add movement template, instantiated movement template. Okay, now we go into our monitors, looking for orphan nodes and objects. Ta-da! Orphan nodes is not going up because we have avoided creating nodes that aren't actually being attached to the node tree. I don't like what we're having to do here. I don't like this. This doesn't make sense to me. Because it's supposed to be that upon this happening, its child nodes should come into existence. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe the child nodes are going to be readied after this one is ready. But that defeats the point of on-readies, doesn't it? Or maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of this the wrong way. So we're going to create all of this stuff. Just to be sure. It will create the node when it's ready. I don't like that, but it works. So good enough. Okay, solved. Interval in seconds. Float. Oh. We go into a spawner template. Float. It's going to be a 1.0. We're changing it to fractions of a second, so we have a little more control over that. Movement speed should be a float as well. Then we go into a spawner. That's a float. Counting group should be that. All right, what do we explode? Hey there, King. One possibility is we just make them stop when that happens. Well, we'll have to check. That's a later problem. So we are spawning them frequently enough. We're making a bullet heaven or survivor style game, King. Should make them a lot less jittery. Center one is still going to be plenty jittery. Yeah, we need a close enough logic. We need a close enough logic. We also need logic to make them stop moving if they can't get out of a collision. We'll see. Okay, so we have the spawners. We're going to go into the game here. Make sure I... This should make them spawn more smoothly around the edge. It's really faint, but there are 5 little arrows around the front edge of them that turn to face their target. Happens if we go into a... We will need to change this very soon, but go into a mob body. Right now, these are hard-coded to look for other mobs. If we go into each one of these and say player as well, we're going to have to make enumerated types for collision masks. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. No, it was just luck. Yeah, see, they're not colliding with the player. They're colliding with each other only. Interesting. Is that happening? Because the vectors are looking at the player level. Let's go into the player scene. The player collision capsule there. It exists on layer 2. Which means the thing should be colliding with it. We're gonna do some experiments, make sure this is working how I anticipate it to work. This is the little pill shape is the player's collision bubble. Yeah. Interesting. Problem for later for now. Problem for later. So now we have spawners. We need to fix the weapon spawner. Let's look at our constants here. It is all right. We need to come up with what the actual masks are. So this should be bitwise. So this is 1, this is this is 2, this is 4. That kind of thing. Go into layer to or then that should work. Enemy bullet we don't need anymore. I wish we could use these in a object set there. Can't we? Let's take a look here. Go into a mob body. Is a template, really. At export bar instance dot collision mask. Should be there. Hey there, Nugget. Should be there. It should be in constants. Let me do here at. We are trying to make our game. Oh, export enum. Will that work? Yeah, I think this will work. About the way around. We'll look at it. So it's at the moment, it is a lot of, well, I say it, we're doing a lot of optimization. We're trying to set things up so that we can create monsters and bullets properly for a bullet heaven game. Oh, that's not what we want. We'd have to define the enum there, and that seems like we're going to have a lot of wasted space or a lot of duplicate content. Let's see if it works, though. Let's try it. We're experimenting. Sport. Best as a collision masks. Oh, I think that worked. So then if we go into a mob template. Yeah. We have to export it. We have to export it. Am I doing that in other places? Okay. By exporting this, we're making it globally available, but I don't really want or need that. Hey there, Lola. Flags, globals, node range. How you doing, folks? Should be able to do that, but registered as global classes using class name. Me more. Let's go find that. How'd you get lucky there, Drew? Doesn't ring a bell. What in what context? I'm trying to think through how to get this out of it without it having to be a oh oh constants. Okay, that's an auto load singleton. That means this should be there. Well, that could be useful. Export category. Directory, no. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, Zell. So I got around the memory leak issue by manually constructing the movement structure, the movement templates node inside the movement node in its ready. So as soon as it comes into existence and is ready, I can attach that node to it in its own ready. And then subsequently, I call a function to add movement templates to it. Like I pass those to the movement object and it handles the addition of them. Ultimately, that's better anyway. If we can do this. Don't really want to expose it as a variable, but I might. Yeah. I think this will still do, because then in mob template I can say just that. And now collision masks, I can set it. Yeah. So how do I want to name this? So there's avoidance things. So we want it to avoid particular targets, and we want it to exist in particular areas. But the existence isn't really going to be set. That's going to be set outside of it. say avoid mask. Oh, but this isn't right. It's kind of what we want. Something for flags, I thought. Yes. But now I'm having to duplicate things. Oh, no. I don't like that. Thinking. Okay, we can still do this. I think we have to export them for them to be visible. We're going to try it without. Mask underscore wall. It's a string. It's equal to 1. Player enemy object bullet. We're differentiating player bullet not because we actually think we're going to need it, but just in case. Object bullet. How can we clean this up further? I think we're going to leave it that way for now. Export flags, constants, on stamps, dot, collision mask, all, comma. How can we declare 1 second here? Okay. Void mask as yeah, okay. Ember dodged. Beverage time. Hey there, Copper. Enemy object bullet. Odd. Object. Bullet. It's moving along. So what we're adding to the mob template now is an avoidance mask, which we are going to use to set all of its collision rays to its appropriate avoidance mask. Because different types of mobs will avoid different things. So if we go to our blob here, it now has avoidance mask. And of course, it's been avoiding enemies. So we're going to add that. And we go into our spawner. We're going to go into our mob body, actually. And it has its raycast array. Void mask is an int. Task frequently swings through. Barbed wire is not a common visitor. Couple of other folks that aren't terribly common. I'm a small enough channel that it's largely me doing it. Most of the other folks are just long-term members who have been there and helped act as mods before. Okay, we have that. So when we create our mob body, got a void mask. Equal to mob to spawn dot a void mask. I should have sets for these. But if we have sets for them, then we're going to run into problems with the nodes. Because these will be set before this is ready. Technically, this stuff should be able to change, though. because I don't want to be constantly resetting these. So our problem here is these are only settable when it's unready. But if I create this object and it isn't added to the world, then those values aren't ready yet. Okay, let's get here. And we're going to go into a mob body and we're going to hit here. Okay, so we just got here, but we haven't done mob body.ready yet. So we're going in, we set these values, we add the mob, but it hasn't been readied yet. Interesting. That doesn't line up with what we did with movement. Oh, yeah. We don't want to do it in ready. Okay, let's put that here. Blob was readied. Oh. Step, ready. Okay. Okay, so what we need to do is that first. We need the node to exist first. Now we can go through and we can set its values using setters. This doesn't need a setter, but these do. We do that. Okay. Don't need that. I'm not going to default it. I'm going to say when we set and get a value, modulate color is equal to value, and sprite dot modulate color equal to value. That. Then you set value. We're doing this so that we can force the relevant things to happen. It's redundant. mask to value. Here's the relevant part, though. Raycast in raycast spelled right. As a raycast 2D. Mask is equal to avoid mask. Get children. Okay, so what it'll do if I set the avoid mask is it'll store it in case I need to get it. But then it's going to iterate over each of the raycasts and set that appropriately. So when I set these, they will have an impact on it. So it will change the sprite's modulation. It will change the raycast collision mask. So I can say in it, if I go into our blob file here, it currently collides with enemies. But if it doesn't, if it collides with the player, so we should be able to get them to run into each other and they'll overlap. It's not colliding with the player, which is weird, but we'll get there. So, see, they don't collide with each other anymore. So then if we set it to enemy in the blob file, this is just for the raycast. This is just for avoidance logic. I'm going to run these blobs into each other, and they should have the same collide logic going on here. Yep. We will be messing with that further. What I need is some smoothing in there so that they slow down as they approach each other, you know? Like right now, it sets it to the radius of their collision. I can set it to something different where it will extend out, and then it will use the radius as like a slowdown proximity. Okay, I don't know why I can't collide with player. Look at our player object. This is relevant because we want to fix the bullet objects next. Player exists in the player layer. How about in the game world? Does collision test exist in? It exists in the enemy and looks for player. But player exists in player. How odd. The enemy one is working. So Thor is correct, which means player should be 2. And player is 2. Oh. There too. Which means in our blob template, we should be able to say that it collides with the player. let's look at our avoid here. Yeah, the raycasts aren't colliding properly with the player object. Why not? The collision isn't disabled. It's not that the blob should stop when they hit the player, like intrinsic physics wise. It's those arrows should light up when the player bumps into them. You can see the blobs are still overlapping with the player object without the arrows lighting up. So, why is? Yeah, we need to know this because we need to be able to properly control it. When an object is going to collide with something else, I need to know how to make that work right. So each of these ray casts, we're going to turn off all their collision masks here. They don't fundamentally collide with anything. I want to make sure I'm not missing some idiosyncrasy of it. Nope, still doesn't collide. Oh, okay. They need to collide with areas and bodies because the player is a body. Other mobs are areas. Let's test it out. Bump, bump. Ah. Okay. Now we're going to go into our blob template. And we're going to add enemies as well to their avoidance logic. See, I can force my way into them because it is not a... It's not an absolute, but we can see the pushback is working. I kind of like this. Look at that. It's all functional. So we can push through them. And we can see a ripple of motion around it when I do that. Yeah. Yeah. We're getting places. Okay, so we've added another thing to mob bodies. Now, we need the concept of actual collision. This is where it's going to get trickier. we want the monsters to collide with the player. And so we need monsters to be able to be identified. The trick being, let's go to our game world. This is our collision testing object. It's not going to be called collision test in the end, but that's what we're using for the time being. Its other areas can run into it, and it is looking for other areas entering or exiting it. It exists in enemy space, and it's looking in player space. Like, it cares if it runs into the player. It doesn't care about anything else. But we have these functions to access with. And remember that monsters are not a physical body. They don't collide themselves. The overall area is what's colliding. And that's part of the reason that we're not completely burning down our performance because of the number of creatures. If we're using physics bodies, we definitely start to run into problems by 450 things. We can get like 650 before we start dropping frames. And we could reduce that processing further as far as frequency of movement processing. That would probably give us better performance because we wouldn't be doing as much each thing moves kind of logic. So, so we can say something entered, another area entered, perhaps a bullet. That would give us the identifier of the area. That doesn't help us because the area is the entire world. Like every mob in the world is part of that area. That doesn't help. An area shape entered is more precise, where we have the area's ID, so all enemies. We have an object for that area, it's area 2D. Okay, still useful, but it gets weird with area shape index and local shape index. So we need to be able to translate that into an actual entity in the space and then take that entity out, that shape, and convert that into a mob, knowing that that is the mob that did it, and then passing that along in the collision. So I think we can do this by then taking the area shape entered event, talking to the area 2D and saying, give me this shape. I think we can do that. Now, area shape entered and body entered are going to be relevant here. For for the enemy zone, it only cares if a body enters, if the player enters. We could make this the same across the board. The player could be a collision area, and it is monitored accordingly. We may do that for consistency, so that each area only cares about what is the shape that collided. But with the player, that's kind of redundant. Well, that'll give you plenty of time, Drew, before it causes a problem. Or at least before it's going to reach you. Yeah. So this should work. Because we can get the body. Okay, okay. Making progress. We're making progress. So we can't really differentiate with the collision areas. So what we're going to do is we need to be able to handle it universally. I don't want to have to care about a special case for players. Like, I don't want to have special code just for the enemy collision test world that says, oh, I subscribe to the player collision because I know that I'm the bullet collision logic. Because if I change the structure of the player to not be a generic physics body, then we still run into issues. But is that really a problem? Because the collision, the world colliders here, the collision zones, or whatever I want to call them, are going to interact anyway. Like, I'm going to tell them, if you collide with something you care about, tell it about the collision. Tell that object about the collision. I could check, is it a collidable? And then call that on it. Or I could just check if it has the relevant function, as opposed to asking for an interface. But we do have a method for asking for an interface. And then the player one could be a special case. Because body entered and exited only takes effect under the current system if a player collides. Okay. For the time being, let's approach it as just that we're going to use the player and the I'm sorry, the monster and the bullet layers. We're just going to start with that. Go into our game world. Monster collision zone is monster collision zone. Monster collision zone is an area 2D, which we set, so we're going to have just so. And we should be able to make a special type, a collision zone, that will handle this. We want everything inside of it to be arbitrary. Like, we don't really care specifically what it is. We only care if there's a collision. We should make a kill zone collision area too. We'll handle that in a moment. Kill zone collision is going to be relevant for bullets and monsters. We need to remove them if they hit the kill zone. The kill zone being this area. This is the, if a monster or a bullet hits this, get rid of it. If we put a X 100 mob limit in the world, it is plenty here. 500 blobs can fit within this kind of area. Let's demonstrate here. Have a limiter here. Let's say if it is less than or equal to 500, we will check. All right, Drew. Thanks for joining us. Then we're going to go into our blob spawner. And we will say that its spawn interval in seconds is 10 times a second. Monster collision zone. Got lots and lots of blobs. Collide with the player. They will collide with each other if they're far enough apart. I do need to add overlapping logic to them. Okay, we're going to go in and we are going to check our errors here a moment. Okay, yeah, we solved that. I'm going to go into our monitor. FPS. Doesn't seem right. Oh. Kitty cats are doing great, Copper. This is not as good as it was. What if we slow down their processing? The blob body, let's go into... We'll keep that self-destruct around and... No, we'll get rid of it. Don't need the self-destruct there. Anyhow, where's our movement? Ready. Calls move during physics process, but... Okay, what about... Cool. False. We're going to have process. Update is equal to true. If frame update update is equal to false. Okay, they're only going to update their physics once a frame. I'm keeping it in physics process just in case. Go into our debugger, into our profiler. Okay. We're hitting about 400 mobs before it plummets. at 501, we're able to hold stable at about 30 frames a second. Oh, wait. Bug. That off. We're turning off the visible collision shapes because that's going to be some extra visual processing going on every time there's a collision, which is going to happen a lot. Debugger monitors. Still at 60. 400. Starting to drop. At about 500. So we look at it, we come back. Okay, it holds better this way. It's still very, very busy. I'm sure there's other optimization we can do, but if there's 500 things on the screen, the player is kind of hosed. Like, if there's 500 entities in existence, the player has problems. But we're still running over 30 frames a second, which is just fine for a sprite-based game. Yeah. Look at him go. They have swarms of little blob buddies. Okay. Yeah. I think losing 15 frames per second once we hit 500 is just fine. We're gonna leave that in for now. We'll figure out how to put in limiters here. If not nodes dot type dot monster. Okay, so if it's a monster, we're going to limit the number that can spawn. We're going to set it down to 100 things can be active. So less than 100. How have I been? I've been pretty good. Yesterday was a pretty sleepy day, and we ran into some of that. our global nodes. It should be equal to monster, right? Nice movement. What are your favorites, King? The blob body that does it. Bubble type is 0. And spawner. I think I know what it is. Greater than spawned interval seconds. It's 0, and this is less than 100. Okay, we have a 100 mob limit right now, which is plenty. We could put like 200 or 300, and we're still in good shape as far as frames per second. Let's go back in there, and we're going to say less than 300 in our monitors. So this will be 300 shortly. Still holding at 60 frames a second. Which would leave us about 100, 150 for projectiles that we could have on screen at once as well. Should also see about making sure that the player is always at the highest tier in the art here. We go into the game scene and we collapse all of this stuff. Move the player down here. You see how the player is now shown on top. Ah, okay. Yeah. We have collision. We're sitting at a nice 60 frames a second. It's okay. Oh, that's okay for now. Okay. So we can actually move on to our next target now. Quick break, and then we'll get into that. And we're back. Check something here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we need to start creating our collision zone class. I time you out. Well, okay. Boop. Okay, so a collision zone. We'll figure out where to put it in a little bit here, but not a spawner. It's not a monster. It's going to extend area area 2D. Okay, it's an area 2D, so we should be able to change its type. It is now a cancel as name collision. Let's double check. Okay, yeah. Then I go in here and I can change its type to a collision zone. Do a double test, double check here. Still behaving. Okay. So then we need logic for attaching events here. Okay, event name to a callable with flags. Okay. So what it'll need is it will need a collision mask as well as a what it is. To adjust that camera again or adjust the blankets. Yeah, I think I need to move the cat pillow a bit to the right there. Yeah, okay. At export. hate having to do it this way. This is asking for trouble, but spawner template. I thought it was in templates. Okay, it's in mob template. We have to recreate this each time. Don't like, but what you gonna do? That's why we made these. I do wish I could, like, macro all of this. Save me some time. I'll do that. About this. Oh well. That collision zone. What is it called? I want to make sure that we use the right terminology. Called layer, its mask. Okay. Oh. These don't need to be there. It's already a property of them. It's already a property of them. So if I look, they already have collision layer and collision mask. We've already got that. So it looks for player. It is enemy. Okay. So then we need its node. We have okay, we're going to treat both of them here. Connect this. Area entered and then body entered. Okay, so if an area enters it, we're gonna get the received area entered, and we're going to figure out what the shape was. So we know which area it was, the area 2D that it was, and we know its shape index. And then if it's a body, we have the body. If it's the body, we can directly tell if the body is... We can tell that body what happens. Okay, no, we need body shape entered. Disconnect. Disconnect. Connect. Area shape entered to on area shape entered. Be that. That. Okay, so when this object is readied, it auto connects its own events. Okay. I had been setting them up, but I was setting them up on this individual one, which is not what we want. We want this to automatically happen. Okay. Looking for... We might be able to save further processing by doing this. Instead of having the avoidance movement, the bounce out happening during that, we could actually have it steer to adjust based on this logic, but we'll get there. Because right now we're doing the steering adjustment, the mob kind of push in their individual movement logic. So all of them are doing it individually. We could get the entire collision event here. It'll just be the one. That won't do. Same with that. Yeah, we're gonna have to do the event. We're gonna have to do the event. That's fine though. Just like it suggests, consider using signals instead. Yeah. Okay, so we get that. We need to get the shape from the ID. So do we have a way to get that here? Parent from collision object 2D. We don't care about the area ID. What we care about is the area shape index. Let's turn that back down. So indices of the intersecting shapes from this area and the other area respectively. Values can be used with the physics server 2D. Okay. That's what we want. That's what we want. Server 2D. Need some gets. We need gets. Area get shape should return an RID. Okay, then how do we convert an RID into a thing? Window management. Right. What about node 2D? Node, maybe? We're seeing if there's something we can use that will translate an RID into an object. Node. Because what we want to be able to do is we can tell the physics server, okay, this is the area, this is the shape ID. Give me the shape. Because if I have that, then I can tell, all right, I know that the area is one that we've set up. And if it's set up like this, we should be able to say, okay, it's a collision zone. Override. RID. Project. Free them. Sounds like trouble. Most things will have a get RID. We don't just want to get it, we want to identify the body that is from that RID. Here's noise, objects. Look at our methods again, see if we have a clean way of doing that. A cleaner way. Void int. Variant types. Ew. Variant type tends to mean we don't know what is being sent back. Deal with it yourself. Not that. So this will tell us what it is and what its settings are, but it doesn't give us the shape object. Yeah, we can get the RID of the shape. Do a cat check. We'll do a quick look up here. Object instance ID. Okay, we might be able to use this. Instance from ID. Okay, okay. Odd. Come on, cameras. I have to make a button that cycles all of the cameras off so that I can cycle one of them on. I think the hey there, contact. So the bed camera isn't playing nice today. Wonder if I finally managed to jostle it one too many times. Okay, so if we area get object instance ID from the RID. All right, song and dance time. Song and dance time. So we go into our collision zone. So we have an area RID. Sorry. We have, what's it? Okay, we have a local shape, and then we have the target area. So this is the area that we've got. Like, this is what collided with us, and this is its shape. This is our local shape. So if we do... Oh boy. Okay, we're gonna copy paste some stuff here. How you doing, conduct? Okay, so we need an area shape. So to get that, we need the RID. I think this will give us the shape. No, that won't. We need... That's the whole area. Because that's where saying... That's where telling the physics server, give me the ID of this area. So for those joining us, what we've got is we're working on a game in Godot engine, and we have a collision area, or an area 2D, that we're using in place of individual physics bodies to help with performance. Because we don't want to be doing as many collision checks as we have been. There's further optimization we can do, but we're able to get 300-400 entities on screen without losing any FPS at the moment. We want to get more, but we'll have to work on it. So we can get an RID. Canvas. Area 2D. Does Area 2D have anything that we can use here? Getting the collision shape 2D node from the shape index. Okay. This is what we want. This is what we need. Okay. Get shape owner, get owner. Index indices. Okay. We get an area entity here. So that is what we bumped into. But our local shape index is what we care about first. Yeah, we're calling it our self. So we can directly use these. So we have the other shape node, which should tell us the the mob body. This is the mob body. This one right here. And this is our local mob body. This will show up when we have a collision with... this should show up when we have a collision with a bullet. Okay. So now what we would be able to do is we could essentially say if this is a this and this is a this. So if other shape node is a mob body and local shape node is a mob body, then we will proceed. Can I not do this? There we go. Now we're going to cast them into mob bodies because we know they are mob bodies. And then we could tell the local one that it collided with the outside one, and then the local one can take action accordingly. Go into our spawner. We are attaching an event with movement here. But this is not what we want to do. We're going to directly call this. Movement will no longer have collision happened. Movement doesn't care. So we're going to go into a mob body. We're going to have a function called collide, and it's going to be we could have special logic for colliding with a wall, but that's not really how this kind of game would work. Is that if it's a collision with a wall, you just stop. You can't move through it. If it is a collision with anything else, that's different. We're going to need a way to shorthand this. But for now, we're going to go into collision zone and we're going to say got this. All right, Maymoon. Well, thanks for coming through. I do get a lot of folks that just lurk, so don't worry about that. It's just fine if you want to do that in the future as well. Have a good day. Other shape node, and that is going to take an area and area shape index. And it's going to return a node. It's going to do this. Oh. Shape node. Owner and shape node. And it will return node. Area and area shape index and shape owner. So we do so. Then we're going to do that again. And it's going to be local shape index and self. Okay, cleans that up a little bit. So we still check if they're mob bodies. We set them to that, and then we're going to say local mob.collide and outside mob. Okay. In theory, that's all it should take. Now, we need collision logic now. But for the time being, we're just gonna use what we want to use, what we have been using here. So we go into a body blob. Rid of that. No longer need to keep that. Blob body is hurtable. It has hurtable hurt. Player has hurtable hurt too, right? Yeah. We aren't using targetable at the moment, so that's largely irrelevant. For the player, we need to get the body. So that won't collide yet. We're going to test it with the player. So we need to do the same thing with the collision zone and say, like, okay, if it's a body, we don't care about the body shape index at this point, but we do care about the local shape. Then we're going to grab this and just use the first property on it. Just so, if it's a mob body, all right, all right. So what we may need to do is turn the player into a mob body. And have a special movement type for the player. Because then we can treat the player in all ways like an arbitrary mob. And I think that's what we're going to do next time. All right, all right. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to pick up next time then. We have the collision shape, the collision property thing, the collision zone. And this will also let us extend into the idea of having a collision zone track how many things are in it. And then we'll be able to have functions for, hey, tell me how many things are in the monster file. It'll also be an opportunity for us to go in and say, like, okay, what's outside this area, or that kind of thing. We will ultimately need a way to flush an area out and similar. But for the time being, that's what we'll need. We'll need to change the player into a mob. I mean, it makes sense. The player is a mobile object, so we should be good. We should be good. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I hope everybody had a good time today. We made a lot of progress. I think there's still some improvement we can do to mob movement to optimize that raycast behavior, tighten it down. We're doing a lot more processing than we need to. Like I mentioned, we might be able to do it by handling all the physics processing at once and see how that does. But we'll have to check. That's a whole other can of worms. The going through and saying like, okay, everything in this pool, we're going to do the movement and then we're going to do the checking and see if we have to apply any new stuff. We definitely be getting more into like full-on flocking behavior, treating everything in the world as if everything in the pool as if it moves as a unit kind of stuff. I think for mobs we could get away with that. I'm not sure if bullets would work the same way, but we might be able to do that one universal check. But if we can't get every individual overlap that happens out of that kind of check, it's not going to work out. But yeah, I hope everybody had a good time tonight. If you like what you saw and you haven't already, consider liking, following, subscribing, that kind of thing. It'll help you see content like this in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in another stream. But with all that said, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.